There is no direct causation between I'm working this area, therefore I'm burning the belly fat off.
Around
It just
it.
doesn't work.
Yep.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Truth Talks, the podcast that brings you real strategies for sustainable fitness transformation. As always, I'm Courtney, and this is my brother, Paris, and both of us were born in the 90s. I'm just going to say that. And that meant we grew up in the early 2000s, and there was a common fitness headline that was always all over the place. And for some reason, 25 years later, we're still confronted by it. I'm going to let you say the words.
How to lose belly fat, or target stubborn belly fat, stuff like that. There's like a bajillion different variations of that same headline.
Yeah, belly fat. Anything that's like calling people out on quote unquote belly fat. And I'm using air quotes here on purpose. If you're watching the video, if you're listening via audio, please note air quotes are being used. Belly fat. It's been this term that's been thrown around that's just like feels so ominous and has made people think that it's actually way more of an explicit, unique thing than it really is. And we keep hearing about it again and again and again. Why?
It's almost like it's painted as a different kind of body fat. You know what I mean? Right. It's like you have everywhere else is just body fat, and then your stomach is like, it's belly fat. It's different, you know?
Right. It's different than arm fat or thigh fat. It's belly fat, right? And it's like, okay, let's calm down a second. So today, Paris and I decided we need to finally address this topic because we're still having people bring it up in the conversations we're having with them. And we really want to help everyone understand that it's not that distinctive. We kind of need to do away with the entire term of belly fat. So you'll hear us talk a lot today about, what it actually is. And we're going to really just spend this episode busting myths. There's 3 key myths that we're going to dive into. So please make sure you listen to all 3, stick around before we actually talk about, okay, what do we actually do if we are trying to minimize body fat in the quote unquote belly area? So we got 3 myths coming up and then a big dose of what you can actually do, practical takeaways to see the changes that you might be wanting to see with your body.
Awesome. I'm excited for this one.
Me too. We're going to kick it off by just talking about why belly fat feels so personal, because I do want to acknowledge that if anybody reads those headlines and it resonates with them, there's a reason why, right? There's a reason why people are still talking about belly fat, because it does kind of strike a nerve, and we got to respect that at least too before we dive into busting the myths.
I even remember when I was younger and like I was at a slightly higher body fat percentage than I am now. And I would remember my shirt, like when the wind blows, the shirt was like on my stomach. And then I would look down, it was kind of like protruding. So like, it's right there for you. You know what I mean? When you do up your belt, it's obvious, like that's the spot you're looking at when you try on a new shirt or new clothes. So I think there's definitely validity to why people care about losing that specific area. It's like, come on, let's just get rid of this. Like, I don't like looking down and seeing that. Like, I can understand that, but we need to kind of clear up some things in regards to what the science actually says in terms of losing body fat.
Right. Yes, exactly. And it's so front and center. And even when we look at pictures of ourselves, I feel like your eyes almost always gravitate towards like your stomach area. And it's just something that people feel very personal about. And even in our new client intake forms, when we ask people, what body parts are most important to them to see changes, a lot of people say stomach. So it definitely is something that people are thinking about. And I do want to make a quick note, rightfully so, not just because it's ingrained in your psychology, but also because excess body fat stored in the midsection in the abdominal area does have some correlation with risk in certain health outcomes. So things like cardiovascular health, right? So what we're not saying today is, it's fine. Keep all of the body fat stored around your belly. We're not saying that. We're saying, yes, there is some health risks with having excess body fat in the abdominal region. That is true. However, we need to tackle it in a way that makes sense. And so that's what we're here to do today.
Awesome.
Okay.
Let's do this.
Let's just go right into it. When people hear quote unquote belly fat, what are we actually talking about here, Paris? What is quote unquote, saying it again, belly fat?
Yeah. It's just the
terminology.
Yeah. It's just body fat, scientifically termed, just adipose tissue that happens to be stored in front of your, organs in your stomach area. Like, we're not going to go into the whole visceral fat thing right here, because we're talking about the fat that's more on the outside, that you would see more visibly. But like, just body fat that's sitting in front of your stomach or on top of your stomach. Let's just keep it simple like that, in your abdominal region, that body fat.
So if we actually think about the cell structure of these fat cells in this area, completely the same as fat cells stored anywhere else in your body.
That would be correct. Yeah.
Okay, so that's it. So really what we're talking about is just the same thing that you find anywhere else, just dedicated to a certain region.
Dedicated to a certain region.
Dedicated to a certain region.
Those are some dedicated body fat cells. Yeah.
Dedicated.
Gotta respect the dedication.
Yeah, and I think they're there, right? They're dedicated. But it is just a common storage area that is often related to genetic differences. Sometimes we think about it through the lens of sex differences, right? So it's just a place where your body stores fat, and some people are more predisposed to store body fat there than others, again, based on things like genetics, sex, life stage, hormones, that kind of thing. But it is not proof that something is wrong. It is not more stubborn by default because it's in that area. And that's the first thing we really want to clear up.
Yeah. You got to remember, we each have our own body fat distribution patterns. Okay. And that's a whole other nuanced conversation. But some people, just for those reasons and factors that Courtney mentioned, might just store more or less body fat in that area. Right. And when we look at differences between, sex specific differences, like women tend to store actually more like around their hips area, and men typically, that's why that whole pot belly or beer belly became like a term, was because men a lot of times when they gain weight does go to their midsection area or right in front of their abdominal area. So yeah, again, there's just important things to know.
Absolutely. And it's also why I did bring up like sex differences, but also the life stage differences, because I was able to have a great conversation with Dr. Diana Castleman, who's a naturopathic doctor. One of my very close friends specializes in menopause practice and menopause care. And one of the things she talked about was how in that stage of life, in that transition for women, hormonal changes can shift where body fat is stored, right? Mm-hmm. So you might start to see more body fat stored in the abdominal region. However, it's not causing body fat, and there's a very big difference.
Yes.
So what we're talking about is not the increase in body fat. We're talking about the way body fat is distributed.
Yes.
And that's why we start to see things in certain areas. But overall, what it represents is a total amount of body fat on a body, on a person, and then it just gets distributed differently from one person to the next based on genetics, sex, life stage / hormones, and a few other factors.
Yep. Awesome. And even like, not to this, we'll just leave it at this to go into the next section, but like even for ourselves, like genetically, I would say we both do store a little bit more body fat in our stomach region. Like even for me, when I'm, trying to get really, really lean, for me to get that area to get lean, I have to get like super lean to the point where, my face is super like sunken in, my cheeks, and like my arms have like crazy striations and everything, just to get that section to eventually go. Whereas some people, they just don't hold much body fat in their stomach. There are some people, but maybe they hold in their legs, which we don't, right. We don't hold. So it's just important to know your own body fat distribution patterns. That's it.
Yep, for sure. And we're lucky because we share genetics, so we can actually compare some of the similarities.
There are some sexes, similarities,
right?
Yeah.
But some similarities in genetic distribution, right? So it's really interesting. Let's now dive into the 3 myths. So now that we know what quote unquote belly fat is, and you know what, for the rest of this episode, I'm just going to stop saying belly fat because I don't want to say quote unquote every time because it drives me crazy. We're going to just call it body fat in the abdominal region or in the stomach area, midsection, those types of words, because that's a lot more accurate, right? Like that's what it is.
Yeah, we'll just say whatever. People know what we're talking about.
Yeah, you guys know what we're talking about, right? Right, cool. I'm assuming you said right because this is a one-way conversation at this point. But 3 big belly fat myths that we have heard. So the first of the 3 main myths we want to talk about today. You can target belly fat.
False. Hence the word myth.
Myth. Yeah, I figured saying it was a myth kind of gave away that that's false. Yeah. That's a false statement. Yeah, you cannot target belly fat.
Yeah. So there's no way to choose where your body loses fat. I can't just be like, all right, I'm going to do a cut. I'm going to do this fat loss phase. And you know what? I decide that I'm going to lose the first 5 pounds are going to come right from my stomach area. Like we can't do that. Everybody, just as we said, everybody stores body fat differently. Where you lose, the pattern at which where you lose and gain body fat is also individual. So you just can't choose. Yeah.
No, you can't. And we actually did a great podcast last year. We did a great episode on how can you improve specific muscle groups or improve specific body parts, areas, that sort of thing. So we got a great lens on that from, not just the fat loss side of things, but just overall physique development if you are looking to, think about specific regions. So I'll link that one below for anybody who wants to check that out. But it's really important because if you think about how we put on body fat, we also don't say, hey, I'm deciding I'm going to store this in my arm instead of my belly, right? We don't make that choice when it's coming in. We also can't make that choice when it's coming off.
Yeah. That's a really, really great point and way of thinking about it. I also do want to say, just to keep it real on this podcast, is like a lot of times people say, oh, I just need to lose this and I would be everywhere else is fine. But this is just this one area. To be completely honest with you guys, most likely when people say that, they usually have between 15 and like 40 pounds that they have to lose to then lose that body fat. And usually you're not like as lean as you think in the other areas, and not trying to be mean, but like, it's not just the one area typically. And like, it's a longer journey than you would expect. Not to, discourage anybody from chasing their goals, but I'm just want to keep it real and saying like, it's not going to be like you dropped the 5 pounds and it just all came from there. Now you're good and you're happy. Yeah. Just want to keep it transparent,
But that's the psychology of how we think about our bodies, right? Like we get very fixated on seeing certain things, but our bodies don't respond in the same way.
I understand
so do I. That's why I said it's all of us as humans, right? So I think that's our goal today, is just to inject that dose of objectivity and say, hey, let's just look at it as a practical reality for a second, right?
Exactly.
So that was myth number 1. We cannot target belly fat. So naturally, one of the things a lot of people do when they try to target belly fat is these core exercises. I just got to say it for a second. I got to have a moment. I have to blame some of the fitness industry for this.
Especially YouTube.
Especially YouTube. Yeah. Go to YouTube, type in belly fat. Actually, please don't do it. It's going to just make us all angry. Don't do it. But if you were to, the results would be insane. Do you know how many ab workouts would be up there? Ab workouts to target belly fat. Ab workouts to shred belly fat. Ab workouts to burn that belly off. Like that sort of nonsense, just it astounds me that people still make content like that. I understand why people click on it.
Because it gets views. That's why people make it. Like people care too much about views.
Not enough about actually putting out quality stuff.
Exactly. Pretty much. So if you ever see a headline that tells you, you're going to do this core workout to burn your belly fat, like it's complete garbage. Sorry.
Yeah. So that is myth number 2. Core training burns belly fat. The reality is core training or ab workouts do not burn belly fat. So when we think about doing an ab workout or doing any sort of core training, it's not saying it's useless, right? Core training is great for overall core strength, stability. If you want to develop your abs, you need to work them. And that's actually a podcast episode we did as well. How can you actually get abs, right? So I'll link that one too. If you are really focused on your midsection, check that one out. However, it's like any other muscle group, right? I don't go, I'm going to burn my arm fat by doing bicep curls. It doesn't work that way. And it's the same thing for ab workouts. What we are doing is we are using a muscle that is completely unrelated to anything to do with fat loss.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, I shouldn't say anything to do with fat loss. It maintains the muscle while you lose body fat, but it doesn't relate to any fat loss outcome.
Yeah. You're not like directly burning the fat around the muscle that you're working, is what you're saying. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. So when we think about your midsection as it relates to ab workouts, yes, can ab workouts change how your midsection looks? Of course, because we could be developing a structure underneath if we are doing the right exercises and we're treating it like, a structured training and all that, for sure. But there is no direct causation between I'm working this area, therefore I'm burning the belly fat off.
Around it.
Just doesn't work.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, that was myth number 2. Anything you want to add to that?
Nope. I think we sealed the deal.
Yep. Sealed the deal. Perfect. Myth number 3. There's this big trick, this ultimate secret that you are just missing. That's a total myth.
Yeah. I'll see these advertisements that are like, I don't know. It's like certain intermittent fasting protocol for people who are also blood type this and this sign, this star sign, and this will burn your belly fat if you follow this time eating window. Like just the most random stuff ever. And or the supplement that directly hits your body fat, like or the apple cider vinegar thing of like this will burn body
Oh
fat
my
if you have it
God.
fasted, or like
Hmm.
oh my, it's just, and we still see this. It's
Let's put it this way.
embarrassing for a fitness industry.
It is embarrassing for the fitness industry. And it's so embarrassing that anybody thinks to actually put that out there. And it's embarrassing that we have to have a moment to fight against it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
let's just put it this way. If there really was this one thing that legitimately got people this outcome of destroying the fat in their midsection, do you think it would be a secret?
Yeah.
Everybody would be doing it, and nobody
Yeah.
would be complaining about the fact that they still have quote unquote
Mm-hmm.
belly
Mm-hmm.
fat. Like, it simply does not exist. And we're going to explain why in more detail when we talk about how to actually get rid of body fat in that area. But we need to really think about the fact that anytime you see belly fat next to something, ask yourself, is this just designed to get me to click on this thing or to
Mm-hmm.
view this thing? Because 99.9% of the time, the answer is going to be yes. And it's going to actually give no value to you in terms of productivity.
Yeah.
And can I shout out Mark? We shout out Mark. We did it on the last couple episodes as well, but he's really good at calling out the BS that I know it pops up in his feed, and he shares it with our group, so we're all aware of what's circling out there. The apple cider vinegar one was for belly fat was one that he's called out a lot recently. He's been getting ads for that.
I still see that a lot. You know what? The only thing apple cider vinegar is good for, Courtney?
My salads.
Salad dressing. Yep, that's exactly what I was going to say. Literally salad dressing. That's about it.
Dressing. Yeah. It tastes good. I use it as the base for my homemade coleslaw dressing, and that's pretty good. Listen, just for the record, I'm not anti-apple cider vinegar. I love it as vinegar, but it's just like balsamic to me. I don't see anybody out there talking about balsamic to burn belly fat, and then they both start with a B, so they're missing something.
Alliteration. Balsamic.
Alliteration, yeah.
I'm gonna make an advertisement. If I was trying to scheme people, it'd be like the balsamic belly fat buster or something like that.
Just drop, yeah, balsamic belly buster.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
a perfect
Okay,
concoction. We're not going to do
on.
that. We're not falling for the trap that everyone else has fallen for. We're not doing that. We're here.
We have truth in our name for a reason. Okay, let's move on.
Please, hopefully everybody listening detected the sarcasm with that. So, 3 major myths about quote unquote belly fat, storing body fat in your abdominal region. First, you can target belly fat. Wrong. Second, core training or ab workouts burn belly fat. Also false. Third, there's a trick I'm missing, or there's this trick you're missing. Nope, there's nothing fancy about it.
Or supplement or hack or anything. Yeah.
No supplement, no hack, no magic pill. Any of that stuff simply is not a factor. You can pretend those don't exist, because they shouldn't. So one thing I want to talk about before we actually give people the productive, what do you actually do if you want to start reducing body fat in your midsection? We're going to get there. But we need to acknowledge the main problem with these myths is not only that they're deceptive, but it really, really keeps people stuck. If somebody is genuinely wanting to make progress towards their fitness goals, and that involves losing body fat around their midsection, which is a very respectable goal and has, for a lot of people, positive health outcomes, right? So the goal is not the problem. It's the means to get there that's the problem. And when people focus on these 3 things, this idea of, oh, I can just target it. Oh, I'll just do some ab workouts. Or, oh, there's this magic thing I'm going to try. When you focus your efforts there, because that's what the messaging that you're exposed to is telling you to do, it keeps you stuck. It keeps you stuck because all of that effort that you're putting in is not going towards something that's actually going to move the needle. The actions, the behaviors, the focus areas that actually matter for reducing body fat in that area.
100%. We're spending all this time picking up pennies, but we're stepping over the dollars for fat loss.
Yeah,
it's like, and we don't, not even pennies. If there's a lower denomination, or negative denomination, that would be it.
But yeah, pennies can add up. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so, okay. So Courtney, if I'm trying to lose body fat, right? Let's say I come to you and I'm like, Courtney, you know what? I got this belly here. I don't like the way my pants fit, or my shirt when the wind blows is just like making this big bulge, and I don't like looking at it. What should I do?
Great question, Paris. I'm so glad you asked, so we can talk about it. We need to go back to the principles of what drives fat loss, right? Because as we said up front, the body fat that is stored around your midsection is just like any other body fat stored on your body. So we need to ask ourselves, what ultimately allows us to lose body fat? And we're going to say it for the countless time on this episode. Let's focus on a calorie deficit.
Yeah. Consistent calorie deficit.
Yeah. What we essentially need to think about is why body fat is stored to begin with, right? And that comes down to, we store body fat when we eat in excess of calories consistently over an extended period of time. I'm not talking about, oh my God, I overate for one meal. I'm talking about we're spending weeks, months, years over consuming calories. Those calories are energy, and they have to get stored somewhere, because energy can neither be created nor destroyed. We know that. First law of thermodynamics. So when that gets stored in our body, it's stored as body fat. And that body fat, like we said from the beginning, can be stored anywhere on your body. And so if it happens to be stored in your midsection area, we need to think of then the reverse of that. It got stored in this way. I need to do the inverse to lose it, which means we need to be expending more energy now than we are consuming, which is how we come to a calorie deficit. It means that we need to be focusing on consuming fewer calories than our body naturally uses over the course of a day. And I just got to say it, this process could be slow. If we are really hyperfixated on the midsection area, for some people, like you said up front, for us, genetically, like that's not the first place that we tend to each lose body fat. But if you're not seeing a change there in the short term, keep going, because eventually your body will need to take body fat from somewhere. Eventually, we'll get to that point where we're seeing a reduction in midsection body fat.
Yeah. When you're assessing your fat loss progress, don't only look at your body fat. Okay? Because if I did that, then I would have to wait, like I would probably have 10 weeks of work and then be like, oh, my abs are finally in.
You're saying don't just look at your belly fat area.
Sorry. Don't, if you're having a fat loss goals, don't just look at your belly area
Midsection,
or your stomach, midsection stomach area as the only way that you're measuring progress. Because especially for me, like my shoulders will get lean, then my face gets lean, then my upper back, then my mid back, then my chest, then my stomach. But if I was only looking at my stomach, I would get discouraged and be like, it's still there, what the hell, right? Or what the heck. So I think you have to know that you're going to go through a learning process of where your body loses fat, and also know that you're probably not 5 or 10 pounds away from the stomach fat being gone. You're most likely a little bit more than that. So just keep going, keep staying in your consistent calorie deficit, right? Stay in the process, and eventually those areas, including your stomach area that you feel are quote unquote stubborn, eventually those areas and pockets will leave you. they'll be lost.
You've done some really good content on this, Paris, with like visualizations, and I was wondering if you could just share like one of those visual analogies for people. I think you've done some with like sand or rice in a cup, like things like that, and that's been really helpful, I think, to illustrate exactly what you're talking about. Can you walk through one of those?
Oh, okay. I think I did too. The first one was like a big box of rice, and being like, if each day you removed one rice, you're not going to, like, day to day, you can't see any visual difference in the amount of rice that's in the container. But then after weeks of removing rice, now you're starting to be like, oh, wait a second. If I were to compare this box of rice when I first started versus now, I'm starting to see a little bit of a difference. But because we see ourselves every day, we get so desensitized to it. Yeah. The second visual I had was a big jug of water, and I put labels of like, face, shoulders, legs, stomach fat, or belly area, whatever you want to call it, midsection, ab area. And what I said was, for a lot of people, it happens in a certain sequence. So you have to just keep losing overall body fat, and eventually you'll have these areas kind of leaning out sequentially, and then eventually, the fat around your midsection will be lost.
Yes, you got it. Great. Thank you for sharing those here too. Because like, honestly, those, I felt like when I saw them, I was like, this hits. This is just exactly it. So the main takeaways from that are recognizing that just as you put on body fat in different areas, you will lose it in different areas. And your midsection is, for most people, not the first place. That's just the reality. So just keep going. Just keep going. And give yourself also a time horizon or a timeline that is more reasonable and conducive to actually seeing the changes. Like, don't say, oh my God, it's been 4 weeks and I haven't seen my midsection change at all. Well, yeah, I actually probably wouldn't expect that, right? So keep in mind that you need to be looking at progress across multiple areas. and across a timeline that actually allows you to say, okay, have I gotten to the point where my midsection would realistically be changing?
Yeah, 100%. Good.
Amazing. That's where I'm just going to plug us for a second. And not us, just a good coach. Any good coach gives an objective eye, right? They know what to look out for. They can help you point out areas, like, for example, I have a client who we saw her back was like the first thing that changed when she started to lose body fat. We didn't really see her midsection change with the first 8 pounds we took off, but that's okay because she's not looking at her back. I don't know about you. I can't look at my own back very well. But when I pointed out to her, she goes, "Oh my God, you're so right." And it's so encouraging to also know that, because it shifts the narrative from, "Oh my God, I cannot lose this stubborn body fat," to, "Hey, you know what? I am capable of losing body fat. And you know what? Eventually, if I keep doing these things, the midsection will change too." And that's a much
Exactly.
more empowering conversation than just being so focused on what's not changing.
That's so well said. And also, the thing is, the biggest killer of progress is actually people just getting discouraged and giving up. So that's why it's so important that you take progress pics so you can recognize progress happening in other areas of your body versus only being fixated on one area. And if that didn't go in the first 4 weeks, it's like, oh, this is not working for me. It's like, well, you didn't give it a shot, and there's other stuff happening that you just aren't getting validation from.
Yes, exactly. Which is exactly why we did our previous episode on how can you measure progress, right? And I think a couple of those measures are very relevant here too, which was, scale weight still matters, right? If your scale weight is going down, then chances are you're losing body fat, so that's a good indicator. The visuals, as we've talked extensively about here, but also let's not forget, if we are talking about things like abdominal area, one of the reasons why we get so fixated on it was, like you said up front, it's because you feel it when you put a belt on, you put your pants on. Look at that same indicator for the opposite, for losing that body
Mm-hmm.
fat, right? Like if your pants start fitting differently, that's a really good sign that maybe you actually are losing some of that midsection.
Yeah. Love it. Really good
Okay.
conversation. What do you want to give us as a key takeaway here to wrap things up?
I think the key takeaway here is just recognizing that when you do the right things meaning scientifically backed, evidence based, practical realities of body fat change or body fat loss, eventually the belly fat will become part of that change and that transformation, right? So I just really want people to feel like losing any sort of quote unquote belly fat is within their reach, so long as they follow the right principles, give themselves the time, and look out for the progress along the way. Please don't get discouraged that by thinking it's not going to happen. Just think about how it can happen and focus on the things that can actually matter. Hopefully today allows you to say goodbye to those myths forever and redirect your attention to creating a calorie deficit, maintaining it over time, evaluating your progress, seeing the changes along the way, and feeling ready to keep going.
Love it. Good chats.
Great chats. Anything else you want to add, or to finally say goodbye to this conversation around belly fat?
I don't think so. I think we covered it. Perfect timing. And we'll leave it there for today. If anybody has any comments, questions, or concerns, drop them in the comments. Shoot us an Instagram DM, whatever. We're happy to chat. We are the ones in our DMs. So you'll be talking to us, just so you know.
Yes.
And
No AI bots yet around
yeah,
here.
no, yeah, I don't think we're going to be doing any AI bots. But yeah, so we're happy to chat, answer any questions, comments, or concerns. We're here to help in any way we can. And yeah, we'll leave it there.
Amazing. Have an amazing week, everybody, and we'll catch you next Monday with our next episode of Truth Talks. Bye for now.